Hi everyone and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and I have a little haul I want to share from Craftstash. Actually, half of this is a haul of things that I purchased and then the other half is actually a giveaway that I won from Craftstash over on their YouTube channel. I'll leave a link to their channel in case you are a fan. But I picked up a bunch of stuff and I have another order on its way, but I didn't want to wait for that order to arrive before doing this video because usually, well, Craftstash ships out of the UK and I'm in the US, so it'll take another like 3 or 4 weeks for that order to get to me. So I thought I'd go ahead and share what I got in this haul. So I picked up, I think I got the full collection. It was a bundle of the Art Deco collection from Textures, which is the brand that Lou Collins designs under. And she does a lot, she hosts a lot of the videos on Craftstash. So, kind of, she's had quite a few releases under the Textures brand, and I I've loved them all, but this is the first set that I've purchased because there's some things in here that were in particular that I really wanted to try out, and then as it turned out, the 2 or 3 things that I really wanted, if I bought them individually, it cost more than to just get the full bundle. So I went and got the full bundle. So it was like that fantastic of a sale. So in the bundle is a paper pack of 24 sheets. There are these 6 designs and you get 4 of each. This is an A5 size. So really different. This is sort of the paper feels like it sort of feels like that silky, you know those like really fancy business cards that have that sort of silky, matte finish? It sort of feels and looks like that. It's really interesting. But the colors are pretty muted, and they have that Art Deco sort of style to them. So these are the 6 unique designs. Gorgeous. Love the colors. Sometimes I really like having some of these darker, more muted colors because I feel like a lot of times I see a lot of bright colors. And so that's what I tend to have a lot of. And sometimes it's kind of nice to craft with like a different palette of colors. So kind of like really, think that's different, and I'm gonna like it a lot, I think. Then there are 2 stamp sets in this collection that are great to create backgrounds with. And so this is the Art Deco background, and it looks like it's half a pattern, and then you can kind of turn it around and stamp out the other half. So I guess that's really great because it makes it a more economical purchase instead of doing like the full pattern but as a background stamp that's twice the size. You could get like 2 of them in 2 different designs. So this is a marbled background, and the thing that interests me about this is I've been getting into art journaling, and so far I've used a lot of different things to sort of speed up that process of creating my own background. So I've used pattern papers, I've used paper napkins, things like that that already had a lot of design and texture built into them. But the next thing I want to explore is kind of building up my own background from white. And I think stamps like these, especially the marble one, will be really interesting and helpful to creating a background from scratch in my art journaling. And so I'm excited to use this one in particular, but I think this one will be pretty neat to use as well. And I think these will be great for cards. Let me check the size. So about 3, just shy of 3 3/4 by about 5 3/8. So a decent size. And again, that can be kind of doubled, so you can maybe use this on a 5x7 perhaps. And then we get some stencils in this collection, and oh, okay. I did watch the launch video for this collection, and these are called flip stencils. I believe the concept behind these is that you would stencil it in the one way, maybe in one color, and then, you know, kind of turn it, flip it, and then stencil in a different color, and then you would get sort of a different way to use these. I'm gonna have to go back and watch the videos on this again just to refresh my memory. I mean, of course, these are beautiful patterns on their own, but if you utilize them in that flip capacity, I think that's gonna give like another different look, which kind of adds to the versatility of these. So then those are the stencils, and then getting into the dies. So this is the geometric panel die set, and these are big. I mean, don't be fooled by the packaging. These are actually, there's two here. So from cut line to cut line is 7¼ by about 2 3/8, maybe 7/16. So this could be really great as maybe a decorative mat for a slimline card. You know, maybe have a larger mat outside of this and then layer this on top of it so you get that color peeking through. This does have the outside cutting edge, so it's not gonna cut into your paper. It's actually going to give you this full panel to use as a decorative element. So that's pretty cool. Really nice. I don't make enough slimline cards. I don't always think to do that, but I think this set would be great for that. And then this one I thought was really fantastic. So this one's called Frames and Banners, and it's just got a lot of elements in that Art Deco style, which I think, for me anyways, and what's in my craft room, is very unique and different. So that's why this collection, I think, and the steampunk collection was another one that I thought was pretty cool. Oh, the pipes one was also really cool too. She's got a lot of very novel, you know, different designs. I like her collections a lot. So this one's pretty cool. It's this shape here, and you know, the space here would be fantastic for stamping a sentiment. And I can see there's going to be a lot of like texture that the die puts into this piece, because the outside edge is the cut line, but you can see it that there's another metal line right, you know, inside the cut line, but that's not as deep. So that's sort of, and I don't think it's as deep even as what a score line would be either. So it's just going to push your paper in a little bit. So it's going to do a little bit of a deboss. And then, so that's going to push the paper in. And then there's metal work here. And then where you see that's open space between the metal, basically the way I read this die is the metal here, it's going to push into your paper, and the gap between all that metal, it's going to look like it's raised. So I just think this die in and of itself, just running it through, maybe you need to run it through with your embossing mat as a second pass to get all of that detail. But it'll be interesting to see how much of that detail comes through just running it through the die cutting machine in one pass. But it does look like there's like kind of different levels of, you know, embossing, debossing detail in this, in the way that they've designed it, which I think is fantastic. So there's that. Then there's a couple more interesting, these like sort of strips, kind of, I wouldn't say borders, but these are kind of cool. I like the pattern and the design of it, and then you get sort of different lengths and you get different widths of it too. So again, really nice for your slimline cards, because look how long that is. That's like 7 3/4 is this one. These are slightly shorter. So for comparison, this one's the longest, and then you get that one, and then that. But I think what's cool about some of these is if you wanted to use this on a smaller card, you totally could. So this panel is USA 2 size, and so if you wanted, you know, you could just run this pattern straight across. I mean, you would lose a little bit of that detailing, but you could just snip it and you'd have like a beautiful, you'd still have that beautiful pattern that's centered. So these are pretty snippable and usable, and you can even do them like off center too. You could maybe run this like that, just, you know, have it off centered, maybe even put another piece at the top like that. And you know, this one's really simple. You could definitely, I could definitely see doing this sort of top and bottom maybe. And I do love that it's, you know, in that Art Deco kind of geometric feel. So I feel like so much of what's in my stash is very soft curves or florals or, you know, butterflies. So having a collection like this where it's more your like straight, rigid geometrics and just something different is gonna add a lot to my my stash, just in terms of the different style of cards that I can be creating. So then this one is a nice frame, and it does have the outside and inside cutting edge, so you could see you know, maybe putting a sentiment in here, maybe making this like a shaker card, so that's a fun one. Then there's this style of frame, which it has the oval on the inside, but it's sort of has that rectangle that's nested inside the oval. And it does also look like this one's gonna have some of that sort of debossed detail, because you can see the extra metal, and then that sort of pattern that is the gap. Because if they didn't want that to be raised, that gap area, they would just do full metal there, and you know, give you like a release hole to push the paper out. But they've added that little gap between the metal so that you have that little extra bit of design that comes through when you run this through. Then there's this frame, which is larger, and look, it's perfect for an A2 size card, because this is an A2 panel. So that's gorgeous. That looks really pretty. Kind of little squiggles in the corner there. And then this is cool. 2 words, so you've got celebrate and birthday. Really very usable, general purpose, and can be used all year long. So fantastic set. This was definitely one that I was really interested to pick up, because it's got all of these little individual elements that can be combined, used separately, you know, used individually, or combined together. And so I think that's going to be fantastic for building up a lot of different patterns and borders and backgrounds. So there's that. Then this is another one that I was definitely interested in, which is the Art Deco alphabet and number set, which also includes the punctuation. And you know, I'm a sucker for alphabet die sets. This one I like in particular because it's got that fun, you know, kind of double line detail that is very reminiscent of Art Deco, of course. And the other thing that makes it a little bit different, I'll have to use it to see how I like it, but what I thought was interesting with this is that it's got the outside rectangle border around each of the letters. So this is actually going to die cut a tile, and the positive letter will drop out, so you can use that, but then you can use that entire tile as a negative. So I think that's going to be pretty cool, pretty fun to use. And I'm not going to be able to use it in the way that sometimes I like to use my alphabet dies to kind of, like, for example, if you want to do an eclipse style card and you want to cut into your paper, and maybe sort of use the negative space as part of the design element. So that's like, you can't really do that with this because you could, anytime you die cut this out, it's going to die cut a rectangle out. So the negative space is just going to be a rectangle. It's not going to be the shape of the letter. So I think that'll be interesting. But then again, I think it'll also be useful to have that as a tile, and then you can just tile together your phrase or your word. And these are a nice size too. They are 1 3/16 of an inch tall, so really awesome. And then I do like that, I don't often use the punctuation marks, but I like that they've included it because, when I need it, it'll be nice to have, especially the ampersand, I think. So I think that's cool. I love the style of it. It'll be interesting once I start crafting with it how much I'm gonna like the tile aspect of it, but I think I will. I think I'll like it a lot, actually. But I just love it for that look, because I have a lot of alphabet die sets, I'll admit, but none in that style. And then the other die set that I was really curious to try out is this one. This is the Card Builder die set, and essentially it's sort of like a framework of creating different 5x7 cards. And of course, it's easy enough to create different card styles, because it's straight cuts and straight, score lines. But what's novel and interesting about this is that for simplicity and maybe efficiency, what you can do is you've got this one really large die here. And this is essentially, I think this will be 10 inches by 7. So the idea is you're going to be able to create different 5x7 cards based on where you put these two metal dies, which will score lines. They don't cut lines. And so you can choose, there are these notches along here, and those are the different locations where you can choose to put your score lines. And so these little dies here would fit into there. And so the idea is, if you just pop one of these in the center, you're going to get your standard 5x7, fold it in half, and there's your standard card. Then if you put it, if you use 2 of them and put them in these 2 locations, you're going to get your gatefold. So that's pretty easy. I'm not sure what you get when you put it in this location. I'm gonna have to watch the launch video again, or just play with it and just see, how you use it. Maybe it's an easel card. But yeah, the idea is that there are these different positions that you can put your score lines in. Then you run it through, and then you have your card base essentially done. It's scored, it's cut, it's scored. All you have to do is just fold it. So so I think that's pretty interesting. And then you get 2 dies that will cut out some mats. So this is, basically your 5x7 mat. And then if you cut your gatefold, you cut your card base as a gatefold, then you'll get the mat layer for the gates. So that's that one. And then on top of that, you get more of these decorative strips. Now these ones are they're all the same size, and they are rectangles. So I'm wondering if these, I wonder, does that fit there? Yeah, it'll be interesting. I need to just play with this and see what are the different folds and different styles of cards, can you make with this? So I just thought that would be interesting. I mean, I don't mind cutting and creating my card bases from scratch. It's not too terribly hard, but it is kind of nice, the idea of being able to pass this through your machine and have everything done in one go. So this was one that I thought would be kind of fun to play with. So there's that. So that is the Art Deco collection, and like I said, I think this was the full collection. And then besides that, there were some other things from textures that I've been eyeing for a while, so I just took it as an opportunity to pick it up. This one in particular, I really like, and I think there are a couple of stamp sets across different collections that are conceptually the same, where you have the positive and the negative version of the same design. So, as I mentioned, I'm getting into art journaling, and I feel like this would be a really fun one to kind of build up my backgrounds with. But besides that, I just think it's really cool to have both the negative and the positive, because you can use them together, but you can use them separately, of course, and get two very different looks, I think. So I think that's going to be a fun one to craft with. And then the other set that I've been eyeing for a really long time, this is, I think, from one of her earlier collections. It's from the Steampunk collection, and it's the alphabet stamp and die set. So I love the little gears, that little design in each of these letters. I think that's just so different, cool, obviously very steampunky, so definitely goes with that. There were actually a lot of things in the steampunk collection that I really liked. But the alphabet die set definitely, or stamp set definitely stood out to me most. And so I loved that. And then I got the coordinating die to go with it. Now, the downside to this, though, is that it's one plate. It's not meant to be separated, because that's pretty thick metal. So, on the one hand, it's kind of nice because it's all one plate, so you're not having to mess with individual dies that you might lose. But, on the flip side, because they're all connected like this, there are some techniques that, will just be a little bit harder to do, or not possible at all to do. So, for example, the idea of, cutting into your project and using that negative space, you can't do that with this because everything's connected, so you can't individually spell anything out. So that's sort of one downside to it. And these letters, they're pretty decent size too. They're about 3/4 of an inch, slightly taller than that. And you do get a lot of different punctuation too, and even like an extra little gear. I mean, the one nice thing about having it all on one plate is you can just run this through and you get the full alphabet. So imagine just running it through a couple times, and then just having a bunch of letters ready to use. And for letters that you don't, so there's a pro and a con to that, because you're going to be cutting out a lot of letters that maybe you don't use as often, like Z, X, Q, letters like that. But you can always use you can always just cut little pieces of cardstock and just put them behind the letter that you need. You don't always have to cut out the full thing. But if you do choose to cut out the full thing, I think there's a couple of interesting things that you can get out of it, because for one, you can use that piece that you cut this out of, maybe as a background too. You can use that as the negative space, because this is USA 2, so you can see that kind of takes up the full card front there. So whatever paper you cut this out of, you can just use it as a background element on your card. And then whatever letters that maybe you don't use so often, like the Q, X, Z, etc., you can just, again, use that to tile and just make a background out of it, just random letters. Just like how, this is actually just a bunch of random letters. So you can do that with this, and just, randomly, just to create some texture on your card. And you could do, even if it's like a white card base, you can just, do the same color on top of it, and it almost just gives it an embossed feel. So, there's pros and cons to having it on one plate. It's not what I would have preferred, but I wanted the coordinating dies that go with this, so I would probably have to die cut this out, maybe put the that piece of cardstock that I cut this out of, and put that into like a stamp positioning tool, and then put the M die cut back in there, and then position my stamp over that to stamp it out. So it'll be interesting to see how easy or hard it is to kind of line that up. But really love the design of these letters, and it's a good size too. So that's everything that I got from textures, and then to my freebies. So I got I won as part of the giveaway the RSPB collection. I don't know the name of the collection, but it comes with this 8x8 paper pad called Spring Garden Birds. RSPB, I looked it up, it's called, it stands for Royal Society of Protecting Birds, I think? Something like that. Society of the Protection of Birds, something to that effect, but basically it's a nonprofit that is in the UK that is about, preserving the habitat of and protecting birds. And so I believe Craftstash actually donates like a portion of the proceeds from, this line, the RSPB line, to this nonprofit organization. I could be wrong about that, but I think that's the idea behind the collaboration with them. And so this is 24 sheets. It's 8x8 pad, so you get some toppers. And then there are, I think, 4 different designs. Oh, these are pretty. I love the colors too. This is my favorite. I can already tell. And we're repeating, yeah. So then we get 4 different designs and then 2 sheets of toppers. Now the toppers are they're not cut. The paper, I would say maybe a 60-pound weight, if I had to guess. Does this say? Oh, it says 190 GSM. Oh, that's interesting. Because I think that's actually more than 60 pound. I think 60 pound is something like 170 GSM or something in that neighborhood. Don't quote me on that. Then there are a couple die sets, dies that go along with this. So this looks like it would be a really good silhouette, and if I remember correctly, it's 5x5. Yeah. So you've got tree branches and leaves, and then there are some birds here too. So there's one bird there, and there's another bird. So I think this would be really good for like quick card making, because I could imagine just die cutting this out of black card and then putting it on top of maybe an inky background or like a sunset kind of background. I think would be really cool. So that's pretty neat. This one is gorgeous. This looks like maybe it's 5x7. Oh, interesting. 5 1/8 by 7 1/8. So slightly larger than your 5x7, but you could always trim it down a little bit if you have pre-made card bases that are exactly 5x7. But again, I think this would be really quick card making as well, because you could again cut this out of kind of a silhouette style, so cut it out of the black and then just layer it on top of a really pretty background. But I also think that you could do some die cut inlaying, because the pieces aren't too fiddly. They're not too small. There's like, if you did the bird, maybe there's a couple smallish pieces, but the flowers aren't too teeny weeny. The butterfly is just one piece. So there's, I think this might be a fun one to do some die cut inlaying. The other thing that you could do is kind of, it's very snippable too, so you could just snip off this border here and maybe kind of trim that a little bit to go around, and then you won't have like a full frame, but you'll have this interesting kind of edge So I think that could be cool. Like you could even do make it sort of the edge of your card front too. If you snip this, if you cut this into your card front and you were careful not to cut off this line, but just to cut this edge here, I think that could be something that you could maybe play with. So so yeah, I mean, different. Wait, would that work on your card front? Because it would cut. Oh, I don't think that would work because this edge would be on the right side. Oh, so yeah, you can't really do that. But I think you could still snip it and get something interesting. So there's that die. Then there's this embossing folder. It's a 5x7 embossing folder, but a really simple design. So it might be interesting to kind of do the letterpress technique where you ink it and then you emboss your card with it, because there's the tree branch and some flowers and leaves. Almost looks a little bit like a cherry blossom, but not quite. I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know what kind of flower that is. But there is that. Then there's a stencil in this collection. So there's like a little bit of everything here. We've got paper, dies, embossing folders, stencil. So this has different birds, little flowers, foliage. And that's also a nice size. I think it's yeah, it's 5x7. And then we get a stamp set too. So this is an A5 stamp set. Lots of different birds hanging out on branches. This couple of them in flight. And then some flowers also. So very, very cool. A lot of detail in these stamps. So it'll be interesting to see whether they need to be colored at all, because I could totally see just stamping in black, because you get so much detail in them. So yeah, that'll be a fun one to work with. So that's the RSVP. I'm guessing it's the Spring Garden collection. I don't even know the name of it. But that's the giveaway that I won. So I will link to all of these in the description box below if you want to check them out for yourself on the Craftstash website. And when I craft with these items, I'll be sure to link to that video at the end of this one. Thanks so much for joining me. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.